Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican of Georgia, announced Friday that she will not jump into Georgia's 2026 Senate race and challenge incumbent Senator Jon Ossoff. The Georgia Republican firebrand, who was elected to Congress in 2020, slammed the Senate, arguing that not much gets done in the upper chamber and that donors hold too much sway in decision making.
Even with a few good Republicans in the Senate, nothing changes. So no, Jon Ossoff isn't the real problem. He's just a vote, a pawn, no different than the uniparty Republicans who skip key votes to attend fundraisers and let our agenda fail.
Greene said in a lengthy post on the social media platform X. I swear, every important update with these people is on that stupid site.
Someone once said, the Senate is where good ideas go to die. They were right. That's why I'm not running. I won't fight for a team that refuses to win, that protects its weakest players, and that undermines the very people it's supposed to serve, the Republican lawmaker wrote. Greene has looked at either running for Senate or the governor's seat. She expressed confidence that she could win a GOP Senate primary and ultimately prevail in the general election in the Friday Post. Yes, I'm competitive. Yes, I love to win. And yes, I know I would win both the primary and the general. I'd enjoy proving the elites wrong every single day. But that's not what motivates me. It's not about crushing the establishment again or flipping a seat just to help the Republican Party, Greene wrote. It's about the job itself. Greene's decision to pass and run came less than a week after Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, who GOP senators privately lobbied to jump in the race, also announced that he will forego a bid to potentially unseat Ossoff. Georgia was one of 7 toss-up states that President Trump won in the 2024 presidential election. Former President Biden narrowly won the Peach State in 2020. Ossoff is a top target for Senate Republicans in 2026. The first-term senator won his seat by a slim margin, and the general election next year is expected to be one of the most expensive in the country. So far, Republicans have one candidate in the primary, Representative Buddy Carter, while several other office holders have expressed interest in jumping in. This is interesting because, and I'm no Greene fan. I've repeatedly said she is terrible. But if she were to run for Senate, given how rightward Georgia seems to be trending, I think there's a pretty good chance she would win. I wouldn't say it definitively because anytime you have a swing state, it could go either way. But she would have a very strong chance of winning. Not even just because of being a Republican, but also she's one of the biggest fundraisers in her party. Which, if in a race where it's going to be one of the most expensive in the whole country, that's going to also play into it. So I think she'd have an excellent chance of being able to unseat Ossoff. Not because she's would be any better of a senator. Just simply because every state trended rightward in the last presidential election. But going to what she's saying about the Senate being a place where people, they go there and they do their fundraisers. I mean, I agree, right? The Senate is not a functioning legislative body. A lot of gridlock, not much gets done. But would you really say the House is any better? Like, what has the House passed that was so good or even substantial that the Senate was just like not even able to vote on? Once you start thinking about it, what really makes the Senate all that different from the House? There are less people there, which means that each vote is more important than a House vote. And theoretically, for someone like Greene, who has been in Congress now for multiple terms and seemingly wants to stay in Congress for multiple terms, running for the Senate would be the place to go, especially if you could guarantee or otherwise be thoroughly convinced that you're going to win. But I guess that ties into the problem in terms of, does she believe that she's going to, I know that in her little post she's claiming that she will, and I even said I think she'd have a shot of winning. But I really think it's based on the idea of incumbency, where she feels more comfortable as a now, I guess 3 terms Congresswoman, and she would rather just keep rising up in the House, or at least attempting to rise up in the House, than try to start all over in the Senate. And that's what's really motivating her to forego running for a higher position. But man, it's funny. It's always amusing to watch politicians be so confident that they can win, and they're like, oh, never mind. At least with Kemp, I get it. People who run for governor, want to be governor, they're a lot more likely to kind of have a sort of a desire to be in politics for a shorter amount of time than people in Congress, right?
just for example, Newsom, California governor, my horrendous governor. You're not going to see him after his term as governor is up run for a House seat or a Senate seat. Not even just because the Democrats already have damn near any of the ones he could get, but also he probably doesn't want to just run for office every 2 or 4 years or 6 years until he's 70 or 80. But I'm saying that's why with Kemp I kind of understand his whole thing of not wanting to bother with it, because it's like, how long are you going to be senator for? But with Greene, as someone who's relatively young and could sit in the Senate for 20, 30, 40 years easily, it's funny to watch her be like, oh yeah, I could win, but I think I'll pass on bothering with it. So I think she's helping the Democrats, by the way, because that other guy, nobody knows who he is. I'm not going to say he has no chance of winning, but it's going to be harder than someone who already has the national name recognition that Greene has.